So you have an avoidant in your life, and then you see this very common theme starting to emerge, which is the questioning the avoidant goes through, wondering, I really care about this person, but is it possible that I'm just better off alone? You see, this is a common theme as soon as avoidants start to develop real feelings for somebody. And they may start thinking, these real feelings are here, but is it worth all of the chaos that may come? The fears of vulnerability, and while I care deeply, something inside me keeps whispering, you're probably just better off alone. Or you're going to get hurt anyway, so it's time to pull out now before it's too late. Well, if you continue down this path as an avoidant, you're going to find that you lose a meaningful relationship to these avoidant fears or tendencies. And if you're the partner of an avoidant attachment style, you know that it's difficult to be on the receiving end of everything going so well, and then seemingly out of the blue, the avoidant starts to close off, stonewall, and pull away. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through from the horse's mouth, exact conversations that I've had with dismissive avoidants, the themes from them, and 4 things that can stop this cycle from happening when it starts to surface and arise. And if you're the avoidant listening to this, my hope is that you can pull away some really powerful shifts in your mindset to help you avoid this pattern of what could really just be self-sabotage. Or if you're the loved one of an avoidant, these are great things to bring into the relationship and bring into their awareness through communication and conversation, because it may very well be the thing that saves the relationship and stops it from falling apart. If you're new to this channel, my name is Gibson, and I have worked in the field of attachment styles and relationships for more than a decade. And in the early part of my practice, I was seeing 40 plus clients a week. And I have had hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of conversations with dismissive avoidance. And I'll tell you the same theme I would see all the time. Feelings get real, and right around that 6-month mark or so, they would start questioning things. Especially when they started to, it'd almost be like there's this peak, like this climax. Things are so good. And it was almost like as soon as things got really real and seemed really good, they'd start to shut down and pull away. And I would always wonder at the very early beginning, like those early days of my practice, why is it around these peak moments of feelings? And what I discovered over time is it's because once we attach to somebody and really form that bond, that is when our attachment wounds and triggers actually come out the most, because it triggers this sense of vulnerability that we felt as children. And whatever stored subconscious triggers are there are going to be the things that come into our relationships. And if you're not already familiar with a lot of the content I put on this channel, you'll know we talk a lot about how your conscious mind, which is sort of like your logical thinking, analytical self, is responsible for 3 to 5% of all of your beliefs and thoughts and emotions and actions, while your subconscious mind, that habituated self, your patterns, right? Like if you imagine you learn to ride a bike and you have to focus on everything, steer the handles, bike the pedals, know where the brakes are, then you have to really think about it, and it takes a lot of effort. But over time, it gets habituated, and then you're riding a bike and looking at the trees and the flowers. That's when it's become really subconscious. It's become patterned into who you are. Now, that actually makes up 95 to 97% of our beliefs, thoughts, emotions, actions on a daily basis. And so with a dismissive avoidant in general, when they start to form that attachment bond, those subconsciously stored behaviors, the ways that they would have adapted to scary childhood experiences when they felt too vulnerable, those patterns start to come back out and arise because those are their habituated sense of self. So, oh my gosh, I'm feeling vulnerable again. Subconscious mind basically goes, oh, we know how to deal with vulnerability. Here's all your programming about it. Shut down, pull away, protect yourself, put up the walls, because that's what potentially worked as a child, or at least gave the dismissive avoidant some form of relief. So I would see this pattern and theme over and over again with clients. And here's the really interesting part. A lot of the time, by asking these 4 major questions that can really produce mindset shifts, the dismissive avoidant would change their mind from starting to sabotage a relationship and move more into, oh, okay, maybe this is time to actually show up and have more staying power in this relationship and make an effort. And they would grow in the relationship instead of growing apart from their partner or loved one. So the very first thing I would always start with, and this is something I want you to encourage you to think about if you are the dismissive avoidant, but share with your partner if you're seeing some of these patterns, because this can be a healthy communication tool to bring into any relationship. And it's, ask the question, is this a solvable problem? So we know that dismissive avoidants flaw find. They make mountains out of molehills when they start to feel too vulnerable. Again, it's part of how they cope. And I've seen things like, I'll tell you one example of a client who, was dating somebody for 6 months. Everything seemed to be going exceptionally well. I really thought this was going to be great for this person. And I started to see them around the 6 month mark, highlighting small things and making them into really big things. And this client in particular said, and we'll call this client Joe, just for ease sake and to not share their identity. But he said to me, he was like, I'm starting to second guess this relationship because she's a little too messy. And I was like, hold on a second here. Is she a little too messy? Or is this like, it's a catastrophe every single day. It's chaos. And that's something that's so important to you. And it's such an important need for tidiness and cleanliness. And he was like, well, I just don't like it. And I was like, okay, well, have you investigated yet? And here's the question. Is this a solvable problem? And he thought about it for a second. He said, well, I guess it would be a solvable problem. I'm not sure. And I said, well, question number two, have you communicated about it yet? Have you said anything to her about it? And he said, no. And I said, well, then what you're doing is just flaw finding and then deactivating. Because if we have something that's important to us and we communicate about it, and if it's as important, for example, as being a non-negotiable, like let's say for you, you grew up in a household, and let's pretend you're a dismissive avoidant for a second. You may be listening to this, or you might more likely be of a different attachment style. But let's pretend you grew up in a household, for example, where you know there was smoking all the time and that caused lung cancer to one of your family members and that wreaked havoc on the family. You might have like a non-negotiable, like I can't date somebody who smokes. I don't want that. That's really important that we have a healthy lifestyle, that we're not seeing that in the household, because I associate that with a lot of pain, right? That could be a non-negotiable. But things like messiness, like especially if it's not extreme, it's just a little bit. Well, a lot of the times those things are solvable problems, but we won't know until we communicate. And we don't have the full spectrum of information until we see and vet how the person responds when we communicate. So, for example, if messiness was a really big deal to you, you go to the person, you have the conversation, and the person's like, "Oh, I didn't realize that that was important to you. Let me be more mindful when you're around or when I'm in your space to be more tidy." And then you can see the effort and the needle moves. Well, that was actually a win. That was something that may have appeared as a red flag, but it actually turned into a green flag through communication and open conversation. And that, in fact, is what securely attached individuals do. But dismissive avoidants often don't realize that when they see a quote unquote flaw, which is oftentimes just a difference in priorities in somebody's life or a difference in preference, often a dismissive avoidant will just assume that's an unsolvable problem because they haven't learned to communicate. It wasn't something that was often modeled to them growing up. So those first two questions are, is it a solvable problem? Have I communicated about it yet? Okay. Now here's the next two questions. Question number three is, do I know what I need in order to feel relief or resolved about the situation? And the reason I get individuals who are dismissive avoidant to really think about this is because a lot of dismissive avoidants are good at receiving from other people. So if people give to them, they'll openly receive from other people, but they actually often aren't receiving from other people what they truly need because they're almost never communicating about it. In fact, if you ask a lot of dismissive avoidants in a relationship, what do you need from your partner? They'll say, I don't really get needs met from other people. I don't think I really need anything. And that is actually blatantly untrue. In fact, there are 9, 10 major needs that dismissive avoidants tend to have in relationships, but they're not often consciously aware of them. We talk a lot about them on this channel. I will put a link to a course that you can check out fully for free down below, all about the dismissive avoidant attachment style and a lot of their needs in a relationship, as well as how to rewire some of these different patterns. And I'll link that down below, fully free for a limited time, if you want to go deeper into that topic. But I often ask dismissive avoidants, do you know what you need to feel relief or resolution around this situation? And it forces them to start thinking about it. So when they do decide to communicate, they can communicate clearly, because it's one thing to say, I don't like that you're messy. It's another thing to say, I really appreciate tidiness. It's something that's important to me. And I would like it a lot if when we share a space together, like you come over for weekends or if I go over there, if you can be more mindful about that, just out of respect and care for my needs. And if you can communicate that way, you're communicating from the solution instead of the problem. And trust me, that will create massive transformation in the relationship and it will allow you to actually get heard and understood. So, do I know what I need? empowers us to tee up the communication to be successful. Number 4, is this me deactivating out of fear, or is the problem I'm seeing actually a non negotiable for me? It is such an important thing to consider. Again, it takes us from the space of like looking at this to whether or not this is solvable, checking in with what we need and have we communicated, but then actually being able to observe our own patterns. Is this me just finding ways to sabotage the relationship because I just like to shut down when I feel vulnerable because it feels safer and more comfortable? Or is it something that's truly a non negotiable? And a lot of the times that I would have conversations with clients who are dismissive avoidant, I would say like 95+% of the time, they would acknowledge, I guess this is me deactivating because the thing that I'm saying is going to cause me to pull away in the relationship, or the things that I've been considering really shutting down the relationship over are actually not non-negotiables. They're not deal breakers for me. And if you want an example of what a deal breaker would be, it's sort of like we talked about earlier, smoking or not smoking. For some people who are really passionate about like veganism, it's vegan or not vegan, or it could be the other way around. It can be having kids or not having kids. I mean, these are the things that like are truly non-negotiables. And if we go against these things and we stay with somebody despite having these non-negotiables, there's a form of self-betrayal that inherently takes place. And in case you missed it, you can now reserve your spot and get more than a 50% early bird discount for our live relationship coach certification program. Launching October 28th, 2024, this 12-week program gives you the opportunity to build a new career, create your own thriving coaching practice, help your community, and secure your financial future full of abundance with a growing waitlist of clients. And the best part is that you get to spend a whole bunch of time with me as I teach you exclusive subconscious reprogramming tools and help you learn how to change somebody's attachment style from insecurely attached to securely attached so that you can truly help create transformation in people's lives and have a wait list of people waiting to work with you. We also have an entire business week about how to build funnels, systems, and to really build a thriving and busy practice. You can sign up using the link down below the video, and I can't wait to see you there. So getting a dismissive avoidant to really consider that and decide whether or not this is a true non-negotiable goes a very long way. If you want to do a deeper dive into the needs of a dismissive avoidant, I will put that link to the free course for a limited time down below, as I mentioned. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments future videos you want to see, content that you want to see, because I'm going to be making a really big concerted effort to go through these comments and pull video ideas from there so I can make sure that I am creating content about what really matters to you and what your needs are. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so grateful you stopped by, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.